The 32nd President of the United States, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and German Führer, Adolf Hitler. In the clash of these titans in World War II, a group of men were buffeted by fate. The 442nd Infantry of the U.S. Army, comprising of roughly 4,000 Nisei, or second-generation Japanese Americans. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, discrimination against Japanese Americans intensified. These young men chose to respond by joining up. Their motto was, "Go for broke." In Europe, the 442nd recorded a succession of victories and was lauded as the toughest unit in U.S. Army history. They took part in a legendary operation still recounted today in France, near the German border. Around 250 U.S. soldiers were trapped, surrounded by German troops deep in the Vosges forest. The Japanese-American troops broke through the enemy's seemingly impregnable lines in the rescue of the lost battalion.
They broke their way through. The lost battalion of the Second World War had been relieved.
After 4 days of fierce fighting, the trapped men were saved, and the Nisei's achievements turned these targets of prejudice into heroes. But behind the hero's tale lie 350 Nisei soldiers dead or wounded. What caused such high casualties? In this program, we have unearthed new material to help us make a full appraisal. We gained access to a Japanese-American organization's interview tapes with 1,200 former soldiers.
You never know how bad war is until you have to participate.
We also obtained 400 pages of internal Army communications records, strategic maps, and other confidential materials. They enabled us to analyze each unit's movements down to the minute. We then reenacted the events to discover what lay behind the celebrated outcome.
Only 3 miles. Push! At all costs!
Japanese-American troops lauded as war heroes. We explore the story behind the legend. Bruyères is a town in northeastern France, near the German border. In October 1944, the 442nd Infantry liberated the town after vicious fighting with the Germans. Every year, a ceremony is held to commemorate the Nisei's heroic deeds. The 442nd had been in Europe for over a year. They had suffered high casualties and were at the limits of their endurance. After regaining the town, an urgent message arrived from 10 kilometers away, deep in the forested mountains. An advance party of 250 or so men aiming for the German border was trapped and surrounded by enemy soldiers. It was a unit of white, mostly Texan troops, known as the Texas Battalion. They were on a thickly treed hill, 150 meters high and roughly 3 kilometers in circumference. But on this slope, where little daylight penetrated, their retreat had been blocked. With food and ammunition stocks dangerously low. They were on the brink of annihilation. The infantry received its orders at around midnight.
Hurry up! Look it up! We're leaving again! Hurry up!
This came as a shock, as they had been promised several days' rest.
Oh, we were all tired and everything. We just pulled back for a rest, you know. So that order didn't sit too well with us. Why doesn't he send some people from his other groups that he's in command of?
One is that, hey, don't you know that we were expendable? Or secondly, and the bulk of us subscribe to this theory, that we were the best men available.
We'll keep advancing by maintaining contact. With the 100th Battalion on the right flank.
The order had been given by then Major General John E. Dahlquist. Former Deputy Chief of Staff to General Dwight D. Eisenhower, he had been promoted to Divisional Commander without any combat experience.
How long until they're ready to start attacking? It's only 3 miles. Push! At all costs!
Dahlquist had ordered the Texas Battalion into the forest, mistakenly assuming no Germans would be there. He soon sent 2 other battalions from the same infantry in to rescue them, but both ended in failure. Dahlquist's last card was to call on the 442nd.
Here, here. Support the flank here.
They dug in and hung on. It was probably the most bitter fighting we have had. I finally had to use the Jap regiment.
And it was pitch black. It was cold, dark, dreary. We had to hang on to whoever was ahead of us to keep from running into them or falling away up this mountain trail.
How's it going?
Pretty slow.
How about location?
Blue, 314-595.
In the communications logs we obtained, 6-digit numbers appear throughout the text. These geographical coordinates enable us to trace the infantry's precise movements. The troops advanced in 3 separate units. The 3rd Battalion was closest to the Texas Battalion, about 5 kilometers away. They had no idea where the Germans might be. Platoon leader Takashi Senzaki stopped their advance.
PFC Nobuo Amakawa, a very good friend. On my order, he was one of my point men. So these point men, they go ahead of me, and they give me the signal to come ahead or not. Couldn't help him because he's out in the open. As soon as you made a move, they open up with a machine gun. Yeah, you feel so helpless. You know that he got hit.
Amakawa was the first to be killed in the operation. The 22-year-old from Honolulu was the oldest of 5 siblings. He was set to follow in his father's footsteps as a carpenter. Faced with relentless volleys of fire from their invisible enemy, the soldiers were stuck where they were.
The Germans were wise enough. There was a lot of gunfire. The guns were just rattling all the time. When the burp guns were rattling, and we had snipers. They had snipers up in the trees. There's no question about it. It's one of the worst battles that I got involved in.
With the Texas Battalion's food and medical supplies all but exhausted, fresh supplies were packed in shells and fired over to them. However, little of it ever reached the desperate men.
What is the...
The commanding officer knew there was one man he could count on in such a formidable battle zone.
You want me, sir?
Rudy Tokiwa, a 19-year-old from California. He was what was called a local runner.
Tokiwa, I've been waiting for you. Tell where we are to the I Company, okay?
Tokiwa's highly dangerous job was to deliver orders and maps around the battalions when radio and wire communication were impossible.
Don't move.
And one of the things you always have to worry about is mines. Germans are very sharp in setting up mines. Maybe a cover-off or something, and they'd use that. American soldiers will kick it. How about you walk down the street, you see a can there, you'll kick it. If you set it up, when he kicks it, he's dead.
Tokiwa never shirked his risky missions. He had a particular reason for volunteering to join the army. It all started with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. President Roosevelt immediately declared war on Japan. Japanese Americans living in the United States were deemed enemy aliens, and many were arrested.
Just a moment, I'm coming.
Tokiwa's father, a farmer, was one of those arrested.
FBI, we have reason to suspect that you're a spy. No way! I was in World War I in the American Army.
Look, she was really in the army. She can't be a spy.
They laughed at him. They told him, we had no Japs in our
Where
army.
you got this? Once a Jap, always a Jap. Anything!
Turn around and come across my dad's uniform, throw it on the floor and walk all over it. This I will never forget till my dying days.
2 months later, the president issued an executive order enabling the internment of Americans of Japanese descent. Over 120,000 Japanese Americans had to move into internment camps. Camp life involved sub-zero winters in the desert, surrounded by barbed wire fences and 24-hour surveillance. Internees were stripped of their pride as American citizens and driven to a life of despair in confinement. But a year later, President Roosevelt suddenly made a policy about face that would alter the fate of many Japanese Americans.
No loyal citizen of the United States should be denied the democratic right to exercise the responsibilities of his citizenship, regardless of his ancestry. Every loyal American citizen should be given the opportunity to serve this country.
The people that were cast out on racial grounds, he now sought to woo into the U.S. military. There was fierce opposition in the internment camps. Why would they want to fight for a country that has denied them their human rights? But at the same time,
I looked at it a little bit differently. I've always felt that the only way we're going to prove that we're Americans was go to the front lines and prove on the front lines that we were Americans.
Tokiwa overcame the vehement opposition of his family to volunteer for the army. He traded the internment camp for a military training camp. Over 1,200 Japanese Americans from the mainland joined the military. They combined with volunteers from Hawaii to form the 4,000-strong 442nd Infantry Regiment. We learned that another volunteer was living in California.
You're all from Tokyo?
I'm from Tokyo.
Lawson Sakai is now 93. He is one of the few surviving veterans of the 442nd Infantry. His family was forced to give up all their property and move to faraway Colorado. Sakai had joined up in the hope that he could regain his rights as a U.S. citizen. He was wounded in combat 4 times and returned to the front each time. But the Lost Battalion rescue was beyond his worst nightmare.
And they could fire either the mortars, that's why the tree burst. Trees were cracking and falling, and men were getting hit all over.
Casualties mounted because of these tree bursts.
You get a lot of screaming, you know, like, He's wounded badly, and some of them are silent because they're dead already, you know. But there's a lot of noise. Human noise and weapon noise. Yeah, it's really severe.
One incident is forever seared into Sakai's memory.
The German shot me. I'm dead. But I wasn't dead. The helmet came off as a little boy, about maybe 15, 16-year-old boy. I wasn't even a man, of course.
Hitler had been sending even boys and old men to the front to forestall an invasion of the homeland.
He's the enemy. He's going to try to kill you, or you better kill him first. And that's, you know, you go on. Anyway, I survived, so that second life.
Soon after, Sakai was seriously wounded and withdrew from the front. He suffered severe post-traumatic stress disorder. One man provided moral support to the battle-worn troops. Hiro Higuchi was the 442nd's chaplain. Captured in this video is a prayer service held immediately before the rescue mission. Higuchi is leading the service. He was 37 at the time. Higuchi left his wife and children in Hawaii to offer emotional support to the young men heading into combat.
He would come by and walk around and talk to us and see if anybody needed help, or, you know, if they weren't feeling good. He was always there with the boys.
Higuchi's personal effects show the consideration he gave to the troops' families as well.
These are just pictures he took of a lot of the men who he served with. They're just individual pictures of a lot of the soldiers that went overseas. And there, a lot of the names are in the back. Yeah, their names.
Oh, their names.
Yeah.
Nakada, let me take a hold.
Higuchi took individual shots of the soldiers to send to their worried loved ones back home. Almost all were young men in their late teens or early 20s. More than a decade their senior, Higuchi was like a beloved older brother to them. We also found over 300 letters that Higuchi had sent his wife from the front. He writes how he feels about his charges.
I have to be with these men wherever they may be, whatever they go through, for they need me. Many of them were brought up under me as my own children, and I cannot forsake them when they need me so. I only pray that God may spare them the supreme sacrifice.
The 442nd was stuck 4 kilometers from the Texans. The 2nd Battalion on the left bet large to overcome the impasse. They devised a plan of attack, focusing on Hill 617. Germans were using it as a base for counterattack with fresh reinforcements. One company will face off with the enemy to distract them. The other companies would use the opportunity to move around and launch surprise attacks on the Germans. A veteran of the battle for Hill 617 now lives in a nursing facility in Honolulu.
Uncle Sam, go broke, we don't give a damn. Let them come and run at the point of the gun with the victory must be won.
He's 95-year-old Takeo Ikeda.
Once I charge, you just charge. No if or what. You just go charge up. Yeah, it's hard to tell, you know. Why you gonna do it? But you do it, yeah? Yeah, I want to crazy.
It began with one soldier. Private George Sakato was on the front line. He noticed a change on the German side and warned his buddies.
Happened to look up here, the Germans were starting to scoot up the hill again.
Watch out for the machine gun.
But one of his buddies was so exhausted, he was floating in and out of consciousness.
Boy.
Hey, get down!
Oh my God. What? Why did you go?
Hey, come on.
And I jumped in this hole and I said, why did you go? I picked him up and tried to say something, and he died.
Bakara.
Come on, Dennis! Henry! Get quiet! Come on! Go for broke! Let's go! Let's go, guys! Come on, broke! Ah!
Sakato's desperate charge then spread through the ranks. Later called the Banzai Charge, it was a highly irregular combat strategy.
Really afraid of it. The enemy might be attacking the other way. Sometimes you gotta go. Take a chance, huh? You wanna save your body, yeah? It's things you gotta figure out yourself what you like to do. not that easy.
While the Germans were distracted from the front, the companies sneaking up from the side continued their banzai charges. And just after 3 p.m., they succeeded in capturing Hill 617. In the mission's third day, it was their first significant result. But it came at a high price. On that day alone, they counted 24 dead and many more wounded. Chaplain Higuchi went to the front line to tend to his team members personally.
Whenever I pass one of our men, so still on the road, with their body covered, I think of some family. It was a sad duty, and one often wonders why this has to happen to fellers so young. Oh Lord, when will this horror end?
It became clear from our research that political motives lay behind the mobilization of Nisei troops. Playing a central role was President Roosevelt himself. We were able to access documents exchanged between the president, the military, and senior officials. Recorded in them is the truth behind the sudden decision to accept racially outcast Japanese Americans.
This is a document in the President's official file on the War Relocation Authority. It's a letter from Elmer Davis to President Roosevelt in which he recommends that American citizens of Japanese descent enlist in the Army to counter Japanese propaganda.
At the time, Japan was denouncing the United States as a racist nation. It was using radio broadcasts to promote anti-American sentiment in Southeast Asia.
Roosevelt has made the Japanese go to the valley of death. For the Americans, this is a great disgrace. Do you call this justice and fair play? We raise this question to Mr. Roosevelt.
The proposal presented to the president to counter these was to form an infantry of Nisei soldiers who would fight under a white commander.
The fact that Japanese Americans were willing on a voluntary basis to fight for the United States would go far to neutralize such propaganda. Our thoughts tend toward voluntary enlistment as opposed to drafted service, for the reason that the voluntary aspect would substantially enhance the propaganda value. The effect of the yellow man voluntarily fighting for the white would be substantial.
Roosevelt decided to create the 442nd Infantry on the basis of this recommendation. Propaganda films were made to proclaim that the 442nd Infantry personified the American spirit.
This is a brief account of one unique group of them. Americans with... They're members of the Japanese-American combat team. Many of them volunteered to fight when they were behind the barbed wire enclosures of relocation centers. They volunteered to fight for the land of their birth, the adopted land of their parents.
Roosevelt found a way to justify that. He felt, I believe, the political advantages, the military propaganda advantages outweighed the hypocrisy of how he treated Japanese Americans. And certainly the record of accomplishment and loyalty and devotion to duty of the 442nd played into those political hands. No one could have known it was going to be that way.
Are you people going to do anything today? You're only sitting there.
The rescue operation is in its third day. but they are no closer to the stranded Texas Battalion.
Now keep moving. It's only a small pocket up there, so clear them out. Soon. I want you to go up there and keep them going.
Dahlquist then acts in a manner unbecoming of his position.
Got it. I'm going over there right now. Get up! Attack! Son, you're not doing any good here. Get up and attack!
Yes, sir. Hey, tell them about the position of our companies. Yes, sir.
Two-star general comes up and he wants to know what the hell's holding us up. And all this time I'm standing there with him.
You're too slow.
How can we move forward on a minefield under such a heavy fire?
The Texas Battalion's almost been wiped out. Push! At all costs. No matter how much resistance, keep moving.
The general gets all excited and turns around and tells our colonel, "That's an order. I'm telling you to fix bayonet and charge now." Argues with our colonel, telling them what to do and everything, and our colonel's getting madder and madder, and he finally told the general,
"Get a grip! I do not approve of this for this kind of battle. That's a useless death for my man. You can go to hell. These are my boys you try to kill. You don't kill my boys."
You heard my orders. You don't carry out my orders, I'll have you court-martialed. Understand?
Then, that afternoon, the operation would finally come to a head. After the 2nd Battalion captured Hill 617, the Germans' attacks had gradually weakened in force. Some of the 2nd Battalion were sent to support another unit. They were 2 kilometers from the trap soldiers. Now the 442nd would launch an all-out attack.
The sergeant would have to say, "Come on, let's go." That's about all. You don't think about those things. It becomes an instinct already.
A war that we have to win. If we don't, we can lose. So we have to go.
You son of a bitch!
These guys would never give up. For us, we were fighting for 2 things. For our country, and to prove ourselves we were Americans.
they broke their way through. The lost battalion of this Second World War had been relieved. These two are Americans, and they've proved it with the full measure of their loyalty. They too fought during those 9 bitter days.
News of the mission's success was reported glowingly across the U.S. This document, listing the names of American casualties, was not made public until after the war ended. There were in fact around 350 killed or wounded in the rescue mission. The 442nd's total troop strength was now 1,068 men, less than a third of its original 4,000-strong force. After the rescue, on November 12th, a memorial service was held for the fallen. It was led by the infantry's chaplain, Hiro Higuchi. He solemnly read out the names of each of his fallen comrades.
It occurred to me what it meant in my life and yours. Every inch we fought for, through mud and dust and snow and hell, have been fought for and won with much shedding of blood. Millions of lives lost in this war, and unless we build up a better world after this, all for naught. I believe we have the big leaders now who have the vision for a more advanced world in which nationalities will be forgotten and humanity considered more.
After the war, the officers and men of the 442nd returned to life with their families, now released from the internment camps. The U.S. government officially apologized to the internees and offered compensation in 1988. December 2016. A ceremony was held in Hawaii to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. The 442nd Infantry Regiment was once 4,000 strong. With many veterans in their 90s now, only 30 or so could attend.
Special welcome to the Nisei veterans and their loved ones who are here with us today. Folks, let's give them a round of applause again, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Nisei warriors literally shaped our military and our nation. They're all heroes in my book. In fact, they're heroes in any book.
One veteran who did the banzai charge, Takeo Ikeda, did not attend the ceremony. Recently, nightmares reliving his battlefront days have become more frequent.
Very sad, you know, because you're fighting with the guy, my friend's friend.
Do you have any regrets?
No, I'm fighting for them. I'm fighting for the U.S. I still go. I'm already fight for the U.S. whatever.
You know, everybody call you hero, yeah?
Nobody called me hero. I don't like that name. I don't like.
What they gained and what they lost from that battle. Many are still not sure. Some 70 years after the rescue, there are places in Hawaii today that are passing on the message of the Japanese American soldiers. After the war, Higuchi, the military chaplain who supported his young infantry at the front, decided he would build churches around Hawaii to support and serve the post-war community. Veterans of the 442nd were right behind him and turned out in force to help with construction.
When we respect each other, what do we do? To everyone. What else do we do? Okay, how about this?
A world in which nationalities are forgotten and humanity considered more. A prayer born on the battlefield is being passed down through the generations.